our intuition will be silenced no more. This is the podcast called Heard It All Before. So you're telling me that the ancient Egyptians were humans? Really? Welcome to Heard It All Before. I'm your host Chantel, and this is episode 2. And tonight we're going to explore and ask the question, were the ancient Egyptians humans? Last week we explored, were the early humans giants? And we got into that, and it was brilliant, it was wonderful, it was wacky. I appreciate your comments, I appreciate your shares. If you haven't seen that, there's a link below for you to watch the episode of last week. But tonight I want to ask the question, the great people that built these pyramids, were they human beings? I don't know. We're going to get into it in this episode. So come along with me and let's get into it. Let's start off by talking about the gods of ancient Egypt. We have seen and heard many stories about these gods that were depicted as human-like beings. You had Anubis, who was half man, half jackal. You had Sobek, which was a crocodile-headed fierce protector. You had Horus, which was a man's body and a falcon's head. And then you had Nut, who was not just a goddess, but the god of the sky and was depicted in blue, like bending over people. You know what? Have a look at this. Fascinating stuff. Now, what do you think? Do you think that this was just symbolism? Or do you think that this was a literal physical depiction of what the people of that time looked like? If your farmer was just a regular person, would you draw them with someone with a dog head? Would you imagine that? I don't think you would. I think it's clear evidence that the people of that time, they were not just symbolic. I think these were physical depictions of what the people were seeing at that time. What was going on at that time? Why were they depicting gods as human hybrids? Oh, sorry, my intuition's calling me. So my intuition just told me to ask you a question. If you were right now told to draw down on a pen and paper what you think God looks like, what would you draw? Would you draw a human with a dog's head? Would you draw a human with a horse head? So why do we think that those people would describe God and their gods of a human body with an animal head? Now, another interesting thing that was discovered at that time were the pharaohs and their elongated skulls. Check this out, guys.
Right, starting with Pharaoh Akhenaten and his wife Nefertiti, who both had elongated skulls. And then looking down to their kids, their daughters all having these huge elongated skulls, having this extra brain mass, making them most likely very highly intelligent. Then you have King Tut, King Tutankhamun, okay, commonly referred to as King Tut, was an ancient Egyptian pharaoh who was the last of his royal family to rule during the end of the 18th dynasty. So you look at the x-ray of his skull, and it's pretty interesting because he also had an elongated skull, even though Nefertiti was not his mother. Tut, his 5 sisters, 6 sisters, his stepmother and his father all had these elongated skulls. These are the sisters of King Tut. These are different girls. These are girls. These are women, okay? And you can see their heads. Very interesting.
Now you're seeing that. Look at the rulers of this time. Even Tutankhamun, they were known to have elongated skulls. When they CT scanned Tutankhamun's body, the scientists admit that he had an extremely long skull that was not normal for humans. And they put it down to an abnormality or a disability. Huh? That's easy, right? So much easier to say, oh, it was just a disability, than to admit the truth and say, you know what, they weren't even humans in that time. When you see like images of Nefertiti with the high hat on like that and her head's going up like that, don't think it's an afro under there, you know, don't think it's hair. It's her skull. That's why the hats had to be shaped like that, because they didn't have skulls like what we have today. It was a completely different being, I'm telling you. So another thing that I find very interesting about the era of the ancient Egyptians is that when they have discovered these statues and these artifacts, the noses have been removed. Look at this. Now, why were the noses cut off? We've heard so many different narratives and stories. One of the mainstream ones that I hear a lot is that people say they didn't want people to know that the ancient Egyptians were black people. In Africa, it kind of is a bit common sense. The majority of Africa is black people, so that wouldn't really be a big secret that they're hiding. I think it's deeper than that. I think that they didn't have a human-like nose. It could have been a bird's beak. It could have been they had 3 or 4 nostrils under there. Could have been something hanging over. I don't know, but I believe it's way deeper than just a ethnic looking nose. That you wouldn't go to those extremes and those lengths, because apparently it's like 95% of the Egyptian artifacts have the nose missing, apparently. So why would you go to those lengths just to hide that it was a black African's nose? Come on. Another reason why they say they removed the nose is because apparently the ancient gods, they believed that their nose was the way that they would breathe and still have power. So they said, let's remove the nose so they can't breathe. I think that's foolishness. Let's put that in the bin. Foolishness. Now, we've seen a lot and heard a lot about the Great Sphinx. Have a look at this, guys.
A mysterious stone sentinel known as the Sphinx.
I think you can argue that the Sphinx is the most recognizable statue anywhere in the world. Its scale is immense. It's one single piece of stone. It is cut from the natural rock of the Giza Plateau.
The Sphinx stands 240 feet long, 66 feet tall, and 62 feet wide. For thousands of years, this massive statue has been an object of both fascination and wonder. But even after centuries of study, the Sphinx holds many secrets that archaeologists are still trying to unravel.
So, the Sphinx. It's a bit of a mystery because people don't know, A, when it was built, and they don't know what it actually is. So, you see the Sphinx there, it's obviously got like a lion's body, and they've put some dead little man's head on it. It's almost like my little pharaoh's head on the Sphinx's body. It's clearly disproportionate. I don't even think it's aligned properly. It's clearly been tampered with. They've obviously removed whatever head was on there before, and they've covered it up with this small little head to make us think that, yeah, that's how it was meant to look. Please. I've been to Egypt in person and seen it in real life. It looks off, okay? So some people say the original head was a lion's head, so it was a whole lion's body and it was a lion's head representing the god of the lions or whatever. I believe that it wasn't a lion's head, it was a creature's head. So maybe a mixture of a lion-human hybrid, maybe it was like a lion-bird-fish hybrid, I don't know. But what I do know is it's something that they want to cover up and not have us know. They don't want us to know the truth about it. So Kemet was actually the original name for Egypt. So the name Egypt came by the Greeks later on, but originally the whole country was called Kemet. It was known as the Black Land. And I think the black symbolizes the power of the people of that time, because they were scientists, they were politicians, they were mystics, they knew how life works, they followed the practice of Ma'at, which is a very, very amazing, powerful practice about having balance and understanding how things work. And where did they get this knowledge from? How did they know that? This is before religions were invented. Who gave them that knowledge? Look at a little bit of understanding about the practices of Ma'at. See what you think of this.
The 42 Laws of Ma'at. And so the Africans of ancient Egypt were established within the area of northeastern Africa by 3100 BC. This great and powerful African empire lasted over 3,000 years. The Africans of ancient Egypt were well versed in the areas of science, mathematics, warfare, trade, and medicine. However, they also had an extremely detailed religious and spiritual belief system. Now, the Egyptians believe in a concept called Ma'at. Ma'at was understood to be the notion of balance and divine order in the universe. The name Ma'at is generally translated into English as that which is straight. 42 laws of Ma'at, which the human soul must state, are as follows. 1. I have not committed sin. 2. I have not committed robbery with violence. 3. I have not stolen.
Of course, I'm not going to talk about the ancient Egyptians not being human and not mention the pyramids. The Great Pyramids were absolutely, it's a world wonder, because how are you telling me that human beings our size built the Great Pyramids? Look at this, look at this.
The Great Pyramid of Giza. For nearly 5,000 years, we've been told a simple story. Pharaoh Khufu built this colossal monument as his tomb, constructed by thousands of workers in just 20 short years, armed with nothing but primitive copper chisels, ropes, and sheer determination.
As you can see, we're leaving a lot of metal and very little stone is flaking out.
But here's the problem. Practically everything you've ever learned about the pyramids isn't based on solid facts. It's based on educated guesses, at best. So, what if the real story isn't just incomplete, but deliberately hidden?
So, as you can see, the Great Pyramids, they're grand, they're majestic, they're powerful, they're perfectly aligned, perfectly built. The Great Pyramid is 6 million tons of stone, 2.5 million blocks, some weighing 50 tons. The mainstream narrative is that slaves built these using ropes, hammers, chisels, and manual labor. So if you think about it, 2.5 million stones would have taken them well over 20 years to build. And in that heat, and these were meant to be mankind like us, no chance. Again, that's a load of rubbish. Let's put that in the bin. Foolishness. So, clearly it wasn't humans with a rope and hammer. I'm not buying that. What do you think? Put it in the comments. So some researchers say that they didn't actually lift the stones physically at all. So Bashat, who's an amazing extraterrestrial that Daryl Anchor channels, I'm a big fan of Bashat. He's dropped some real good gems. Do check him out if you haven't already. So he explained that they use vibration, sound vibration, to lift these, to lift the stones and then to obviously align them and build them in that order. And that's how it was built. It wasn't physical labor. It was using a higher source of power that I believe we actually have access to. The power of sound, frequencies. But we don't know how to tap into it because it's been hidden from us, obviously for a reason. But I 100% believe that these were not built with physical labor. They were built using vibrational energy. And why? Intuition is telling me that why on earth would they want us to know about the power of sound vibration to build when they've got a whole construction industry that they make billions of? Of course, they don't want us to know about the power of sound frequency and vibrations. That's going to kill off a lot of these big industries, a lot of these industries that are making billions of pounds each day. We're going to get into like free energy and stuff like that in another episode, but you know, back to ancient Egypt. They have to cover up a lot of these stories about the ancient people of that time who had clearly great advanced powers and knowledge to what we have. So let's move on to blue beings depicted at that time. Check this out. So as you can see, in the temples, the great gods are depicted with blue skins. You had Amun, you had Osiris, they're with blue skin. Now let's fly over to India. Once again, you have Krishna, you have Shiva, the Indian gods, represented with blue skin. Now, if this is just symbolic, why blue? Remember, these are two completely different cultures and nations and times. Why are they both got blue skin? of all the colors, they could have gone for a yellow, could have gone for orange, a green, a pink, but no, blue. Blue is the color they've chosen. And then there's something else as well with blue. Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you on that fully. So my intuition just spoke to me, and it said to me, Avatar. The blue-skinned beings in Avatar is the elite showing you in plain sight, because they always have to show you the truth in plain sight, that what the ancient Egyptians and people of that time, a lot of them looked like. Avatars are not human beings. And that again is more evidence that the ancient Egyptians were not human. Okay, blue skin, we don't have that. We don't have that. Now, this next theory is something I don't know much about. So please school me in the comments, because you got the theory about the Grand Canyon is actually Egypt. So let me go to my notes for this. In 1909, the Arizona Gazette ran an article that shocked the readers. Explorers claimed to have found Egyptian artifacts, hieroglyphics, and even mummies inside the caves of the Grand Canyon. I did not know this, guys. I did not know this. And today, those areas are sealed off, forbidden. They said to the public, no entry. Now, understanding how these elite work and the government work, that's a great expense for them to have a whole area forbidden, not allowing human, regular people to enter. They wouldn't go to that extent and to that level of expense for no reason. Clearly, they have found evidence of non-humans, evidence of crazy stuff down there that they don't want us to know. Because why would you cover that up? Why would you cover that up? And why did I not know about this? This was in 1909 this article came out. I don't know much about this, so please, if you know about this, share in the comments. Another thing that indicates to me again that ancient Egyptians were not human is the story about the feline beings. Check this out, guys.
In ancient Egypt, the cat was absolutely revered as sacred. And attached to the cat were ideas or characteristics like righteousness, strength, power, royalty. For example, in the tombs in ancient Egypt, you'll find them buried with statues of cats. And part of the reason why is because they want to connect themselves with those ultimate characteristics of the feline race, of the leonine race, that righteousness, power, and majesty. In the Book of the Dead, Ra is shown with a knife in his hand, killing the serpent of chaos, because cats are ferocious killers too. And then Ra's daughter, Bastet, takes the form of a humanoid cat being. Are these really feline, humanoid beings, as the Egyptians insisted they were? What if they were? Sekhmet is well known as a feline goddess. She's a humanoid cat. She's in fact the consort or wife of Ptah, who came from Sirius, and the Egyptians said was their god of technology who fashioned the human body. So why is Ptah mated with a cat? Is this a feline race that came from Sirius, or where did they come from?
So, Egypt, they loved cats. They loved felines. They had all these amazing, they worshipped cats. They had humans with cat heads. They had cats as protectors. And in many different films and books, we've heard about cats having a knowledge that is beyond. I don't know if you've seen the film Constantine with Keanu Reeves. They use cats in that film, and the cats are like a portal to another realm, or like the afterlife, which is very interesting. But they said that cats have the power to do that. You put the cat in water and something or other, and it can transport you to a different realm. We've heard stories about a black cat walking by is bad luck. Like, what are all these things that cats know that we don't know? And the depiction of the ancient Egyptians, the Kemet people, they knew the power of cats. They included them very much in their life. They worshipped them. They were gods. So do you think it was symbolic, or do you think they were literal cat humanoid people walking around? Maybe they built the pyramids. Did they speak like us? Did they meow? I don't know. But I think that's really cool and interesting because they seem to have worked alongside people at the time. I do think humans, there were a few humans that did exist after that did come in, but I don't think they were the majority. Like maybe 10% were humans and then 90% were not human. Or it started off 100% non-humans and humans started coming in through like hybrid science and all different things. We're going to get into that in other episodes, but it's very interesting. So now let's look into what religious texts are saying about ancient Egypt. The Bible says Pharaoh's magicians turned staffs into serpents, they called down plagues, they replicated miracles. Now, were these just tricks? Because I'm not seeing Dynamo the Magician or David Blaine turning a serpent into a piece of wood. Why? Like, can humans do this? Because why am I not seeing any magicians of this day? No one going on Britain's Got Talent or America's Got Talent turning anything into a snake into a piece of wood. No one's calling down plagues of locusts or mosquitoes to bite up everyone. This stuff isn't happening. So again, this to me is further evidence that these people were not human beings. The book of Enoch even describes fallen angels coming and teaching humans about the cosmos, about numerology, about astrology, and all these things that were forbidden to humans to know. The Quran describes Pharaoh declaring, "I am your Lord Most High." Did he believe it? How did he have so much confidence as a pharaoh? This wasn't a prophet. This was a man, apparently, calling himself God Most High. Because he weren't no human. He knew he had powers, more powers than the regular humans. That's how he could step in a place and say that. And Hermetic texts say that Egypt guarded the secrets of the cosmos, alchemy, and immortality, and star travel. Again, we're hearing about Egypt so much. My intuition's calling me again. Yep. I hear that. So my intuition's telling me, why are all these ancient texts of different cultures, different religions, all talking about Egypt? That suggests, were these people just regular people, or was there a power greater than we even realize and we could even imagine about Egypt? What do you think? Because I'm not hearing every religious and ancient text talk about the city of London, mate. But they're talking about Egypt, about Kemet, about this time, about these people, these beings that lived in that space. Why are they mentioned all over the place? What do you think? Put in the comments, why do you think that they have such a huge reputation? Even to this day, thousands of years later, we're still talking about them, we're still trying to understand them, and we still can't even do even a quarter of the things they did with our advanced technology. But they were meant to be regular humans like me and you, right? So here's what we've heard before from the mainstream media on ancient Egypt. They say Egypt was ruled by humans with advanced engineering and religious imagination. They say gods like Anubis, Ra, and Horus were symbolic. They were not literal beings. They say the pyramids were tombs built with slave labor using ropes, ramps, and manpower. Had to chuckle at that one. That's just absolute foolishness. And they say the elongated skulls were genetic disorders or head binding. Yeah. And the missing noses on statues were due to erosion. Well, that's clearly nonsense. Or vandalism. So, yeah, man, the cat people, the hybrid beings, all these gods, the people of Kemet knowing about my art practices. It's just the pyramids, the Sphinx. It indicates to me that these were not human beings. The ancient Egyptians were not humans. That's my conclusion. That's my take on it. And I'm really interested to know what your take on it is. Do you believe they were humans? Has this episode helped you question certain things? Let me know your thoughts. Thank you so much for watching episode 2 of Heard It All Before. If you haven't, please do continue to like, subscribe, and share this with anyone that you know is a critical thinker or has a curious mind, because you are the people that this is for. I love exploring with you guys. Next week, we're going to be getting into the Tartarian Empire. Woo! I'm excited for that one. So there's so much to uncover. Please like, follow, subscribe. Remember, episode is out every Monday. I will see you next week. Thank you for watching Heard It All Before. I'm your host Chantel. I hope you enjoyed today.
This is
Thank you. Bye.
Heard It All Before.